of lore. Thank you for joining me for the third installment of the Outlaws of Thunder Junction storyline. Things are heating up in this installment. We start out with Annie Flash and her tortured thoughts of Oko finding her so easily. If a Cool could find her this easy, the town would be in danger. She wouldn't let that happen. Behind Annie's house was an unmarked grave. She walked out to it with a shovel and started to dig. She uncovered a wooden box and opened it. Inside, her thunder rifle sat there. Lifting it up, she whistled. Magic carried the sound, and her steed Fortune materialized before her. Fortune's eyes glimmered when he saw the thunder rifle. She mounted and headed for the Wild Card Saloon. Oko had said he could be found there. She had never been to Rustwood. It was a failed ranching town. It was barely inhabited, more tumbleweeds than people. Was this actually a trap to lure her away from Saddlebrush? Were her people in danger? She almost left then and there, but a sound from inside the saloon drew her attention. She dismounted and headed inside. A tiny, shrieking skeleton came barreling towards her, with an angry goblin hot on its heels. The goofy little skeleton dashed between Annie's legs, causing her to stumble and fall. A winged man restrained the goblin. "He's just trying to annoy you, Breeches." "Little thief!" yelled the goblin. The tiny skeleton waved around a pilfered golden necklace and ran off cackling. Oko's voice pulled Annie's attention. "Can I offer you a drink?" Annie wasn't there for pleasantries, and she made that fact known. Oko introduced her to the people in the saloon. The winged man was Malcolm. His job was surveillance. The goblin Breeches was his demolitions expert, and the skeletal thief was called Tiny Bones. "Did you threaten them all too?" asked Annie. "I never threatened you, Annie. I'm here to give you a chance to avenge your kin." "I'm not looking for revenge, Oko." He shrugged in response. "I'll show you the rest of the gang." He led her into the back, where Breeches was yelling, and Tiny Bones quivered with delight. Annie was introduced to a brother and sister by the names of Gisa and Giraffe, a necromancer and a healer, respectively. A white-haired beauty named Ariette and a gorgon named Vraska were also there. Oko mentioned Annie's ability to see through illusions and her capability as a sharpshooter. The assembled outlaws grunted non-committally. Oko warned Annie, "Once I explain what we're doing, there's no backing out." She looked at him. "You want me to play a game not knowing the rules. I'm only in to stop a Cool, nothing else." Oko smiled. "Perfect. We're going to rob Meg Taranow." Meg Taranow was the only structure on Thunder Junction that existed before the Omen Paths. But Annie was disheartened. The supposed vault of Meg Taranow did not exist. She was wasting her time on make-believe. She turned to leave, but a curious voice said, "Meg Taranow and its vault are very real." The speaker was Ashiok, and Annie's nerves were set on edge by Ashiok's half-missing face. Oko explained Ashiok was the one who set this all up and hired Oko. "What does this have to do with a Cool?" she asked. "The Hellspurs have built their base around the vault, Annie. They call their town Tarnation." "Well, then why hasn't a Cool emptied the vault?" Annie asked. "The only key to the vault is in possession of the Sterling Company, more specifically, its founder, Bertram Greywater." "What's in the vault?" was Annie's next question, but she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. This question was answered by Ashiok. "That's none of your concern. What's in the vault is mine." While in the background, Breeches was yelling about the vault being filled with raw power. That settled it. Couldn't let something powerful end up in a Cool's hands. "Where do we start?" Annie asked. "To the Sterling Company," said Oko, "to gather the key and a few more friends." The entire building shook as the massive demon Rakdos arrived. He peered angrily in the back door of the saloon. Oko apologized for starting without him. "You're too large to get inside anyway." Annie shook her head. She had gotten herself tangled up with a rough lot, but there was no other path for her. A coup had to be stopped. Now, Sterling headquarters was located on the edge of prosperity. Oko had transformed into an average-looking person, but it was obvious how much he hated not standing out. He nodded to Sterling guards as he passed, carrying a box with tiny bones hidden inside. In case this plan didn't work, Breeches, Malcolm, Vraska, and Rakdos were waiting hidden in the distance. Hopefully, they'd be able to pilfer the key undetected. Using a stolen courier pass, Oko was able to gain entry past the magical barrier around the headquarters. The Sterling Company HQ was impressive indeed, made of rich marble. Oko stepped up to the front desk. "Urgent delivery for Bertram Greywater." The clerk at the desk let out a long-suffering sigh. "They're all urgent. Just leave it with me. I'll get it to him." As the clerk walked slowly off with the box, Oko slipped out of sight and changed forms to match one of the guards he had seen on the way here. In his new form, he followed the clerk. Annie and Ariette had circled around back of the Sterling HQ, and using a bottle of liquid provided by Breeches, they melted a vent to gain entry into the building. Ariette was surprised that the little goblin could brew so effectively. They encountered some guards after slipping inside, but Ariette cast a quick love glamour, and the men's eyes went glassy, and they both beamed at her. "I'm lost. Could you help me?" she asked. The men tripped over each other in their haste to assist Ariette, babbling over each other and shoving at the same time. Both wanted to earn her favor, and her favor alone. Annie took advantage of the situation to move towards where the prisoners were kept. When Oko had mentioned having friends at Sterling HQ, he actually meant they were imprisoned. The Sterling Company used illusion magic to hide their captives, making the cells appear empty. Annie's ability to see through illusion is why she was here. She found them immediately, Geographic and Satoru Umezawa. Satoru gave her a level look. "Why can you see us?" "Oko sent me to get you guys. We still have a job to complete." Geographic and Satoru immediately descended into bickering over whose fault it was that they had been caught. Ariette appeared at the door. She held the silver prison key. The guards had handed it over willingly. She freed them from their cell and removed the restraints that canceled out their magic. Geographic was hostile, but Satoru showed his thanks, and Ariette complimented both his manners and his face. Geographic started to rhapsodize about burning the entire place down, while flames danced angrily in his palm. "No time for that," said Ariette. "We need to leave, and Satoru needs to get to Oku." Satoru nodded, his tattoo started to shift, and he drifted into the shadows. As they left, Annie reflected on how this crew Oko put together had way too many dangerous people involved. Back with Oko, he had waited while the clerk dropped off the box and re-emerged from Greywater's room. Oko waited until the clerk was fully gone and moved to the door. He could see through the window that his box was on Greywater's desk. Oko knocked on the door in a specific pattern. Tiny Bones burst out of the box in multiple pieces, and Oko watched bemused as Tiny Bones put himself back together and let Oko into the room. In all his travels, Oko had never seen a creature like him. Most undead were so dull. Oko expressed his admiration for Tiny Bones, and Tiny Bones clacked back gleefully. "Do I know you?" a voice asked. Oko spun. The room had been empty. Satoru stood before him. "Does anyone know me, really?" Oko asked impishly. Satoru was unimpressed. "You gained entry here with ease. You could have freed us earlier." Oko waved that away. Had to wait for the right moment. Satoru looked annoyed watching the two of them rummage around the room for the key. "Check behind the portrait. It's always behind the portrait." His voice was full of scorn. He had learned how predictable people are during his years as a crime lord. And sure enough, they found a safe behind the portrait. Oko handed Satoru something. "You'll need this." And a look of pure annoyance danced across Satoru's face. "You went through my things." The item in Satoru's palm looked like a spider. It leapt onto the safe and, using its delicate metal legs and a scanner, determine the proper combination to open the safe. Inside were books and a burlap sack. Inside the sack was the prize they sought. Oko called it the sixth key, otherworldly metal that gleamed but was also blackened. Tiny Bones broke himself back down into the box he came in. Satoru slipped out through the shadows, and Oko just walked straight out of the HQ and was happily on his way when he ran into an unexpected problem. On the road ahead was an unknown fae, a dark-haired boy with pointy ears. Oko knew this fae child would be able to sense his presence, and worse, this fae was traveling with Ral Zarek. Oko didn't want to get tangled up with other planeswalkers. The shock of this realization caused Oko's magic to unravel, revealing himself in his true form. The transformation startled Ral, who sensed something in Oko's box. Tiny Bones could tell the jig was up. He leapt out of the box and smashed Ral Zarek in the head using his own tiny femur. The Fae boy froze, staring at Oko, but Oko had no interest in finding out why. He turned into an eagle, and Tiny Bones climbed up on his back. Oko leapt into the air as Ral yelled for the Sterling guards to stop him. Ral filled the sky with lightning blasts, which Oko barely avoided. He dove down and returned to his regular form, hiding behind some nearby boulders. A figure descended from the sky. The Fae boy landed a few feet away. Oko charged at him, but noticed that the boy held his hands up in a non-threatening way, and his face said he just wanted to talk. Against Oko's better judgment, he slowed down. The boy said, "I don't want to fight." Oko shot back, "That's a terrible attitude for a bodyguard." The boy looked conflicted. "I've been searching for you." Oko's guard was up. "Why me?" "Well," the boy hesitated. "Out with it, lad. I'm in the middle of something here." The boy shook with nerves. I think you're my father." Oko just stared. "My mother's name is Elise. I'm Kellen." Oko knew when Fae were lying, and this boy wasn't. He remembered Elise. The rest of the Sterling bodyguards arrived. Oko had been too distracted. As they raised their weapons to fire, something unexpected happened. Golden vines started to wrap around the Sterling men. They were tossed unceremoniously through the air. It took a moment for Oko to realize that the magic came from Kellen. Ral Zarek was flabbergasted. "What are you doing, kid?" Ral's hands blazed with lightning as Kellen apologized. "I didn't plan this." Ral's lightning dissipated in a wave of disbelief when he spotted Vraska coming up behind Oko. "Thought I was dead, eh, Ral?" Ral never got the chance to respond because Rakdos landed directly beside him and sent him flying with a thunderous punch. Tiny Bones took the opportunity to steal a guard's pocket watch, and Rakdos rumbled his approval. Tiny Bones happily climbed up on Rakdos and sat in the crook of his neck. They all prepared to leave. Oko extended an invitation to Kellen to join them. Vraska objected, but Oko said that he wouldn't leave his son to be interrogated by the Sterling guards. The assemblage gave each other uneasy looks at this revelation. Oko's mind reeled with possibility. His own son had helped him freely. No need to lie, trick, or bribe him. Oko decided that having a son could be a very fine thing indeed. And that ends this installment of the story of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. If you enjoyed it and this channel, you can support us by joining the channel membership or the Patreon. Big shout out to the channel members and patrons for supporting us. Very much appreciated. I will see you all for the next installment of the story tomorrow. In the meantime, go watch some more great videos on this channel because at the end of the day, my friends, lore is life.